This show is part of the RetroZap.com podcast network.
I wish you could come too. He's yours, really. Thanks, Bill.
Yuck. You got cooties all over me. Georgie, and don't stay out too long or Mom will have a bird.
I won't.
Georgie, be careful.
Sure, I will. SS Georgie. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Come on. SS Georgie, on the way. Oh, please, no.
Hi, Georgie. Aren't you gonna say hello? Oh, come on, bucko. Don't you want an action figure?
I'm not supposed to take stuff from strangers. My mom said so.
Very wise of your mom, Georgie. Very wise indeed. I, Georgie, am Credit-Wise the Dancing Clown. You are Georgie. So now we know each other. Game wrecked?
I guess so. I gotta go.
Go without this?
Nah, I'll pass.
Pass?
Yeah,
What do you mean, pass? Don't you know what this is?
the 1978 Luke Skywalker with telescoping yellow lightsaber.
It's not just that. It's mitten boxing graded.
No thanks. If I can't open it, what's the point of having it?
Open. Open? Kid, you can't just open this. Do you know how extremely rare this is?
Don't know, don't care.
Don't know, don't care you. You little jerk. Kids don't know nothing no more. Okay, what about this?
My Constable Silvio!
Exactly! Go on, kiddo. Take it. Oh, you want it, don't you, Georgie? Oh, of course you do. And there's Starships and Sabers and all sorts of scoundrels down here. And balloons, too. All colors.
Do they float?
Oh, yes. They float, Georgie. They float. And when you're down here...
Georgie, get away from that sewer!
Ow, Mom, ow!
Who are you talking to? Oh, I see.
Hiya, lady. I was just leaving.
You stupid clowns. We're just sick and tired of you weirdos lurking around schools and
not by the hair.
playgrounds. Out here.
Wait,
Come
I can't
out
fit
here.
through that tree.
You think you can hide around town scaring little kids? Who's scared now, punk? Huh? Killer! I'll tell you who. You! Pathetic excuse for a bozo reject. You better hope the cops get here soon, because it's on! I'm gonna do you like Chuckles.
No, not like Chuckles.
It's next level time. I'm gonna knock you back to the Macroverse.
How'd you get a metal chair?
I have a deep purse.
Lady, okay, enough.
I'm not even getting started. Have some liquid heat, Ronald McDermott. Come here, Georgie. I'll hold him. Get a piece like Mommy showed you.
It's pain time, clown!
Oh, right in the deadlights. Please, Uncle and cousin, anything. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Just who are you under that mask? Take it off.
Lady, trust me. You don't want to do that.
Don't make me slap you again. I said take it off.
Okay. You asked for it.
We should all be floating down here. Happy Halloween, Scoundrels. Thanks for joining us for the holiday festivities. Here's what we have in store for this week's show. The untitled Han Solo movie now has a title. We'll discuss that and more in this week's news. Looking for a Star Wars celebrity to haunt? Well, you're in luck. Taxus can tell you where they will be next month in another edition of Sky Stalking. The 4th season of Rebels has arrived. We'll talk the season premiere in the first half of our Hyperthetical. Last Halloween, Taxus and I talked Death Troopers. This Halloween, Jay joins us to talk the prequel, Red Harvest, in the second half of our Hyperthetical. Of course, we have a little listener feedback to get into with Silence Fools. This show promises to be a haunting good time. Thanks for joining us for episode 40 of Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels.
Blackwater Hattie lived back in the swamp where strange green reptiles crawl. And snakes hang thick from the cypress trees like sausage on a smokehouse wall. Where the swamp is alive with 1,000 eyes and all of them watching you. Stay off the track of Hattie Shack in the back of the Black Bayou.
Okay, now for a segment I like to call Get to Know Your Host's Halloween Haunts and Habits.
You literally just sprung this on us.
Literally, even.
No time for the lesson in basic. Time for questions. What's your favorite scary movie?
I don't know. Does Alien count?
Yeah, I think that counts. It's pretty scary. In space, no one can hear you scream.
Well, mine's not really like a horror movie or a scary movie, but it's Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street. Love that movie.
All right. Yeah, I'll take that. Nice, gory little filmatic presentation. Those are good picks. So, my scary movie, my scariest movie is Solo, a Star Wars story.
It's not even out yet.
You know, just with all the change-ups and instability, it has me worried.
I'm sure it's going to be fine.
Yeah, okay. Let's move to a better subject. What's your favorite candy?
Kit Kat, I guess.
Well, that's good.
Candy corn. Love me the candy corn.
All right. That's very seasonal. So guess what mine is?
Probably anything dark.
You. That was a shining example of coordination. I'm into any candy that's dark.
That's a big tent. Dark chocolate?
The bitter, the better.
Black cherry gummies?
Those are not to be eschewed.
Licorice.
Red vine is so fine.
But that's not a black candy.
Well, even I have my limits. Lock those doors, scoundrels! You're back to the podcast that you feel completely safe listening to all alone, until you realize the show is coming from within the house! I'm your co-host who believes orange and black is the new black, Taxus! Usually coming to you from the butcher shop of my flagship, the Assessor Collector. And with me are the two hosts who are getting meat pies for holiday presents, Dennis the Sternum Deface, Keithley, and Jay the Cut Flayer Krebs. Dennis and Jay?
So, happy Halloween, everyone. I'm glad we could all get together for some Halloween festivities this year.
Yeah, I'm glad I could be here this year. Nice costume, by the way.
Oh, thanks. You know, Han Solo is a classic, and it seemed appropriate given the recent news. And nice costume yourself.
Why, thank you. I thought Darth Xana was appropriate after the Scoundrel Summer Book Club, and she's blonde like me, so, you know.
Yeah, indeed. And Taxus, your costume. Yeah, I don't know what this is. Help me out. What am I looking at?
Why, it's Slave Jabba. Don't you recognize it? I thought it was the perfect crossover, and let's face it, he could have used a little clothing.
Well, turnabout is fair play, I guess. It's pretty skimpy. How much material did you use?
Almost 3 bolts.
3 bolts? How?
Jabba's a big boy. It's used up more in width than length.
Well, why not? Let's get on with the news, because we're likely to have some trick-or-treaters soon. Okay, so there are some pretty interesting news stories this week. Jay, get us started. What's up first?
Well, Ron Howard announced on a video via Twitter that production on the set of the upcoming Han Solo movie has concluded, and then announced the official title of the movie. And that title is Solo, a Star Wars story. And then the internet blew up.
Who could have seen that coming?
Well, they called it Red Cup Forever, so there was that little lead in, but I don't know. Seems kind of anticlimactic after all that. Not that I'm disappointed in this, but how do you guys feel?
Well, I'm good with this title. This is what the movie's about. It's about Han Solo, and sure, you could have come up with something that is more creative and clever, I suppose, but to what end? The movie's about Han Solo. It's if we get a Obi-Wan Kenobi movie, that's likely to be something like Kenobi, a Star Wars story.
True.
So
that's true.
I've heard a lot of the feedback. People like, oh, how anticlimactic, and sure, but okay. I don't think they were delaying the announcement to spring something unexpected on us.
I don't know. They could have gotten a little creative, like Smuggler's Law, a Star Wars story, or something like that. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, brought that into it. But Han Solo was a man of few words, so I guess it's fitting that the title would be a solo word.
Yeah. That's a good point. Well, I guess I just don't know why they sat on it for so long before officially naming it. Maybe they were kicking it around, focus grouping.
I was going to say they
something.
probably hadn't settled on it yet.
Yeah.
If you think back to Rogue One, the last Star Wars story, they announced that title and no one had any idea what it meant. We already knew what the Han Solo movie was. It was a movie about Han Solo. When it came to Rogue One, people had heard that it was going to be a movie about how the Alliance came by the Death Star plans, but for the longest time, there was a lot of speculation that this Rogue One was going to be about a pilot in Rogue Squadron.
Yeah.
So I think there's a bit of a difference there.
That's true. That's true. Well,
that makes sense.
Yeah, maybe they were just got to the end of it and just said, you know what? That's the best thing we can call it. That's it. So, also prior to the announcement of the big wrap on production, Ron Howard also revealed via Twitter the inclusion of Tag and Bink in Solo. Tag and Bink was a Star Wars Tales title from the Legends line of comics. Comedic in nature, the Tag and Bink stories are based in part on Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, of some luckless rebels whose adventures see them cross paths with nearly every major Star Wars character. In Solo, Tag and Bink will be portrayed by John Kasdan, writer, and Toby Hefferman, first assistant director. And yeah, I applaud more Star Wars comedy. I like this. So, and plus, they kind of look like the characters from the original comics.
It's been a long time since I read any Tag and Bink. And so I kind of remember the stories, and I'm not sure that I even read all of them. I can't imagine these are large parts. I suspect it's going to be more of a cameo type of appearance, but hey, why not? It's the, I know, what's the name of the writer of these?
Kevin Rubio and
thank you,
Lucas
Kevin Rubio.
Morgan.
Right. I know when this came out that, he made something, I think he was kidding around, some offhand joke that Tag and Bink are officially canon based on this, but, sure, why not? But it's a fun little nod and an Easter egg, I think, for fans. I don't know if Ron and Howard hadn't put out that tweet with the hashtag Tag and Bink ? If they appeared in the movie, anyone would have got it. Right. So it'll be interesting to see how they're used. Jay, did you ever read any Tag and Bink?
No, I haven't. So when that came out, I was like, a dog that hears a weird noise, like, huh? But so these guys are kind of like the Fode and Bede from The Phantom Menace in a way, sort of comedic relief, small minor characters. But obviously they had a big role in the comics, which obviously I was completely unaware of.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, I think Tag and Bink were kind of legends to the legends.
Okay.
It was. I don't know that they really fit in with the official Legends chronology.
Right.
They were more of a joke. They were rebel soldiers, and then when the Darth Vader and the Empire came and took over the ship, they disguised themselves in stormtrooper armor that happened to be from some stormtroopers that got shot.
Yeah,
and then they had a lot of adventures like that. So I don't know that you could have ever taken them too seriously.
Yeah, like
Gotcha.
at all. For example, there's I've got the compendium of all the comics right here, and as they're approaching the Death Star, the dark side of the Death Star, the lights look like a chess piece of the knight for some reason. I don't know why they did that. But then when they're inside walking through the Death Star, one of the turbo lifts is between the legs of a Big Boy statue. Big Boy burgers.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's completely tongue-in-cheek through the thing.
Didn't Rubio also do that Troops video?
Really?
I think he might have been involved in that. We'll have to double check that one.
That thing's legendary.
Yeah. All right.
See, but I'm glad you guys brought this up because for people like me, I still consider myself to be a mega fan, but you guys are dropping some knowledge that I never knew. So that's really cool. And I think, our Scoundrels will appreciate it as well.
Yeah, it's fun.
We're here to help. Certainly.
It's good to learn.
Okay.
It is.
Now you know.
Well, with New York Comic Con recently behind us, we got at least one interesting bit of Star Wars news. Grand Admiral Thrawn will return next summer in a sequel novel by Timothy Zahn. The title of the new novel is Alliances and features none other than Darth Vader. So, Jay, did you get a chance to read the original or the last Thrawn novel that Zahn put out that kind of tied into Rebels with Governor Price?
Yes and no. I'm about 3/4 of the way through it. I've been interjecting some of the newer novels in, so I've been kind of rudely interrupting the Grand Admiral with, other books. But I've been enjoying it. I've been especially enjoying him saying, "Oh, his eyebrows went up. Oh, he is now sweating. Oh," because I'm listening to it on audiobook. But anyways, so as you were, soldier.
Yeah, when we get around to reviewing this novel, you and Taxus are going to have a Thrawn off review.
That was a pretty lame Thrawn, but
No, it sounded pretty good. Taxus, I know Thrawn was one of your favorite, if not the favorite recent Star Wars novel, so I'm assuming you're excited about this one.
I am. I'm excited because I'm hoping that this carries on the storyline with Eli Vanto, too, to a certain extent. And,
Yeah, I guess we should go into that because we don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't read the book yet. But I'm with you. I hope he makes an appearance as well.
And I'm wondering if there's not going to be even more Rebels tie-in, like somebody that we all know suggested in a private channel, with the story of Thrawn and the name Alliances. I mean, that's an interesting name because usually that, to me in Star Wars, it evokes the Rebel Alliance, or something.
Yeah. I guess it'll be interesting to see when this book is set, because you could do a couple things with it. The last novel was set before his appearance in Rebels. This one could take place at any point during Rebels, or it could occur after Rebels, before the events of Rogue One. So I'm very intrigued. I'm excited to see what they end up doing with this. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, in our last story, which I saved for myself, the Disney Parks blog broke the news that Star Tours, The Adventures Continues, will be updated with a new adventure set on the planet of Crate, which is featured in The Last Jedi. The new adventure will be added to the Star Tours attractions in Disney's Hollywood Studios and in Disneyland on November 17th. So if you're in the parks, you get a preview of Crate about a month before the movie comes out.
Wow. Yeah, they worked on that fast, didn't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had an opportunity to do Star Tours a couple times in April when I was in Orlando for Celebration, and I still haven't had a chance to see the Force Awakens scene from Jakku that they added. But I'm excited. I'm assuming the Falcon flying through the cave scene is on Crate, and so if that's the case, I'm excited to see what they do here.
It looked all red and stuff on those stalactites and mites. Right? Mm-hmm. And so, that's what I was thinking was beneath the surface of Crate. Mm-hmm. And so, that's pretty cool. I mean, they had to have, I don't know, how long do you think it takes to develop something like that?
I don't know. I don't know if maybe perhaps they are doing some of this while they're doing production of the movie, and therefore it's a time saver in that regard.
No, that's pretty smart. Yeah.
Yeah, because the Force Awakens scene was added within a month, I want to say, of the release of that movie, if not beforehand.
Wow.
So, and they were, I don't know if they ever got around to doing one for Rogue One, but I know there was at least a suggestion that they were going to do one if they hadn't.
That'd be cool. Like you're escaping the Death Star blast on Jeddah.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be a fun one.
Yeah, it's a bit more tragic than they usually do for the ride. But,
Come on, kids.
Get out of the way of the earth while crumbling up. So, all right. Well, that's going to cover it for this week's news. You can find more on these stories and others at such sites as retrozop.com, Coffee with Kenobi, theforce.net, and Jedi News. Well, I thought for sure we'd have some trick-or-treaters after the news. I guess we have some time to kill. I know. While we wait, let's set our jack-o'-lanterns. Jay, what did you carve this year?
Well, I went Imperial this year and carved a Stormtrooper.
Yeah. Yeah, that looks fantastic. Hey, what'd you do, Dennis?
I decided to go something simple this year, so I just carved a Jawa. But I also have my Darth Vader pumpkin from the Rancho Obi-Wan Gala a few years ago that we set out last year. And, that was by the pumpkin geek, Alex Ware. Yeah. So how about you, Taxus?
Yeah, I went something really inspiring and did the rebel that was impaled by Vader through the door.
Wow, well done.
Thanks, Jay. I thought you'd appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, nice work, everyone. Wait, Taxus, did you bring a second pumpkin?
Huh? What? No, this is nothing.
What are you talking about? There is another pumpkin right behind you. I didn't bring it.
And neither did I. So let's see it, Taxus. What you got there?
Yeah, I must have accidentally put that in my pants. Oh, okay.
It's a porg pumpkin. Oh, that's so perfect.
Porgs. Why did it have to be a porg?
I feel like we're being watched.
I am wondering, why are you here?
I'm looking for someone.
Looking? Found someone you have, I would say.
Well, as promised in the rundown, Taxus is here to let you know where you can find some celebrities to stalk next month. Taxus, take it away.
Yeah, this is a very special Halloween edition of Sky Stalking. And just because I thought it'd be a beating, so I didn't do it, but just everybody imagined I came up with some sort of clever alternate variation of these people's names to where they're kind of scary and Halloween themed, okay? Great.
Sure.
All right, first up, MondoCon, November 4th through the 5th in Austin, Texas. J.C. Richards, Star Wars artist, and we got Drew Struzan, who's always a really fun exchange.
Ooh.
Next, Daytona Beach Comic-Con, November 5th. Daytona Beach, Florida, of course. I mean, is there a Daytona Beach, Iowa? You know? John Nadeau, Dark Horse Comics, did some Rogue Squadron work with that. Dennis? Then we got North Carolina Comic-Con, November 10th through the 12th in Durham, North Carolina. Howard Chaykin, Old School Star Wars Comics. Rounding up, we've got... this is the big one, okay? And I think I heard Joe say that, some Bruise and Blasters are
going to that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Rhode Island Comic Con, November 10th through the 12th in Providence, Rhode Island. We've got Andy Serkis, Paul Bettany. I mean, you might as well get in there now, right? He's going to be in the next movie. Mm-hmm. Jason Isaacs. Now, Freddie Prinze Jr. is going to be there. That seems like it's like coast to coast, maybe? I don't know. Kind of interesting. Dallas, we need more like Star Wars people. Just saying.
Nobody ever comes to Ohio, so be glad that you get something.
That's true. I am. I'm not going to look at give Tauntaun in the mouth. That's right.
It is funny that Jason Isaacs and Freddie Prinze Jr. are listed right next to each other there.
Yeah, it is funny. That's weird. Then we got Ian McDiarmid, who's great. Juna Suatmo, who's the new Chewbacca.
It's Eunice.
Oh, it's Eunice?
Isn't it Eunice?
I don't know.
Isn't it how you pronounce that?
Yes, Eunice.
I thought.
Weenus. Need to know now. Then we got Julian Glover, Mary Elizabeth McGlynn, who's Governor Price, of course, and along with her, Steve Bloom, who plays somebody. Y'all know.
Little Zeb.
Yes, Little Zeb. And then Spencer Wilding, who's the new Vader. Okay, and then we've got DuPage Comic Con, November 11th in Wheaton, Illinois. Terry
Not
Pavlett.
To be confused with Will Wheaton.
Not with Will Wheaton. That's right.
Sorry.
We've We got Terry Pavlett, who is a West End Games Star Wars role-playing game artist. Worked on a lot of their compendiums and a lot of their stuff. So, for old school West End game lovers like me, that's a really fun kind of get. And that's it.
All right. Well, that was short and sweet, Scoundrels. So if you happen to get to any of these conventions, especially Rhode Island Comic Con, let us know about it. We want to hear about your celebrity encounters at SCubedPod@retrozap.com.
In this recording, you will see the first test trial of the weapon used against Clan Ren. As you see, the arc generator's energy pulse is drawn to the Beskar alloy in the Mandalorian's armor, superheating it and instantly vaporizing the target. But all the while, doing no harm to our Imperial stormtroopers. The weapon is fully operational, as promised. Grand Admiral.
Effective, yes, but you missed the true artistry of this weapon, Governor Saxon. It turns an armor, legendary for its strength, into crippling weakness, and it strikes at the very heart of your people's tradition.
You said the Emperor wanted this uprising dealt with quickly. This will end it.
You're different than your brother. How would Gar Saxon feel about you betraying your heritage?
He no longer feels anything. I have evolved. Mandalore must evolve with me.
Once your people see their sense of security turned against them, do you believe they'll swear loyalty to the Empire?
A Mandalorian without armor is no more than a common soldier. Fear will compel them to join the Empire.
We shall see. Of course, the weapon's range is far more limited than you promised. Or perhaps you thought I wouldn't notice.
I only had pieces of the prototype. I've done everything I could.
You cannot make it work properly because you do not truly understand it. You need the weapon's creator. You need Sabine Wren.
Governor, I mean no disrespect, but what will stop the Empire from using the weapon on us as well?
Unquestioning loyalty, Captain. Now, find Sabine Wren.
Okay, finally, it's time for some Rebels discussion. Normally, we devote a lot more time to Rebels and attempt to feature reviews during our off weeks. However, we're really, really busy this week. So we are going to do a truncated review. Taxus, sound our spoiler alarm because this will be a spoiler-filled discussion of both Heroes of Mandalore episodes, Part 1 and 2. Jay, can you give us a summary of Heroes of Mandalore Part 1?
Absolutely. And I was so excited for this one because I am so into the Mandalorian culture. So here we go. Sabine, wielding the Darksaber, leads a team of Mandalorians and fellow rebels against a prison in a mission to rescue her father. As the battle progresses, Sabine's team receives an assist from Bo Katan and Mandalorians from House Kryze. Sabine offers Bo Katan the Darksaber, but she refuses on the grounds that she had her chance to lead and failed. Sabine's team then conducts another rescue mission against a convoy headed to the Mandalorian capital and successfully rescues Sabine's father. However, their victory is short-lived before they receive a transmission that Sabine's mother, Ursa Wren, and her brother, Tristan, have come under attack from an Imperial weapon. Sabine rushes to the scene to find the charred remains of Mandalorian armor and the apparent death of her mother and brother. Ooh, chills.
Yeah, this was the episode I got to see at Celebration, and it was quite an experience being in a room with, several hundred other people watching it. And okay, so right off the top, what was everyone's favorite part of this episode? Jay, we'll start with you.
Bo Katan, hands down. I was so happy to see her back, and I can't even tell you how I felt when she pulled her helmet off. I mean, that was just for me because I was so into the whole arc during the Clone Wars with the Mandalorians and Satine and Bo Katan. So seeing her come back was just, and I love the Clone Wars anyway. So it was just coming full circle for me. It was like coming home. I loved it.
Yeah, she's aged really well too.
Yeah, 18 years later, and she's still kicking butt and taking names, man.
Yeah. I'd say for me, believe it or not, the the best fun I had through this episode was Ezra trying to work the jetpack.
Yeah.
It was kind of a mix of like Ezra's Jedi-ness and a little bit of the fun that, okay, I'm just going to say it's funny when Jar Jar gets the droid stuck to him, and he's bumbling around and the droid's shooting things, I'm just going to declare will of the Force right there. So, but yeah, that was fun. But the other thing I really loved was seeing all the different former factions of the Mandalores that kind of, if I remember correctly, like Bo Katan, she was diametrically opposed to, who's the guy that befriended them early on? Remind me of his name.
Gar Saxon?
No,
or Fen Rao.
Fen Rao.
Yeah.
Yeah, she and Fen Rao were kind of opposed, weren't they? Like, let's say politically and everything. So it was kind of cool seeing them unite together. And, one thing that it just came to my mind. Notice how on House Wren, almost everybody's wearing just stark white armor, which is kind of contrary to like, Sabine, and her like artsy, color explosion.
Well,
so
Ursa and Tristan were both wearing that off yellow, off gold color and gray armor.
That's true. That's true.
That kind of struck me as perhaps what the colors of the house were. Or I guess that's Clan Wren, not House Wren. But but regardless, I got to agree with you, Taxus, though, on Ezra. This was more of a Mandalorian / Sabine episode, but I really liked Ezra's development in this one. The one with the jetpack. Such a teenager. He's trying to master this thing that he's determined to do it. Before later in the episode, when the transports go over the side of the cliff, and he gives his jetpack to Sabine's father. And he says something to the effect of like, well, won't you need a jetpack too? He's like, trust me, I'm better without it. But he uses the Force to get back up to the side of the cliff. And, he's got that Scout Trooper helmet that Sabine's painted for him. And I don't know, I liked his integration of all the technology. He was kind of I'm a Jedi, I've got my lightsaber, but I'm going to play with all these other cool toys too. I like that aspect.
He reminded me of in Aladdin, when Aladdin had to ride the carpet, the magic carpet for the first time. That's what it reminded me of, watching him with the jetpack.
Exactly. So, Jay, you brought up Bo Katan, and was this the first time that we had heard that she was, made the ruler of Mandalore after her sister's death, and then up until the time where the Empire came in and took that away from her?
Well, she wasn't technically the ruler of Mandalore. She was appointed regent by the Jedi after the Clone Wars. But there was not really everyone said, like Fen Rao was saying, that many refer to her still as the true ruler of Mandalore. So I don't think there was ever a title that was given to her, because I think the Darksaber has a lot to do with who has that title overall. But there is so much division between the Mandalorians, between the pacifist regime of Satine versus the warrior mentality of the true Mandalorians, who ended up, going to Concord Dawn. So, there was always that split there. But it was when she refused to join the Empire that's when a lot of the Mandalorians, basically looked to her and said, well, yeah, she's our leader, because she's not going to give in.
Yeah, that Darksaber is now the Mandalorian Excalibur, which is interesting because, Satine ruled Mandalore without it. She was a pacifist, and it was Pre Vizsla that kind of brought that back into Mandalorian culture during the Clone Wars. And then Darth Maul had it, and then, of course, Sabine recovered it from him last season. Was it last season of Rebels? Yeah, it was. Right, and then had that wonderful episode where her and Kanan were doing some training. And that's where we kind of learned about Sabine's trauma with how she got, I don't want to say exiled, but she had to flee Mandalore for her own protection. But let's focus on Sabine here for a moment, because she is the key character to this episode. She's wielding the Darksaber at the beginning as a symbol, as they're trying to rescue her father, And then she does attempt to present it to Bo Katan. You know, she's, in a way, Merlin in that regard, if we're going with the Excalibur motif.
Yeah.
And then at the end, it was the weapon that she created that was referenced last year, that the Empire used to enslave her people, that was, or assisted anyway, that came back and apparently killed Ursa and Tristan. So what are your thoughts on Sabine, Jay?
Well, I mean, Sabine's character has definitely gone through so much growth and transformation. And even just in this one episode alone, she's wrestling with so much. I mean, she's having to wrestle with decisions that she made in her youth that were maybe, as she said, aggressive and arrogant. And now she's basically having to live with the consequences of those decisions, and then having to try to make those right. And at the same time, dealing with this leadership being thrust upon her with the Darksaber, and not exactly knowing, you know, if she truly can handle that type of mantle, or, you know, should she pass it along to someone who might do a better job? Is she copping out? You know, what her whole, you know, character is wrestling with so much in this episode. And I just think that it was just played so well by Tia Sakar. I mean, she put so much emotion into her voice that you could feel everything that Sabine was feeling. Mm-hmm. And I just thought it was a great episode.
Yeah, I really liked seeing the relationship with her and her father. You know,
mm-hmm.
Her father.
Oh, that was fantastic. Yeah.
Her father's kind of an interesting guy too. It's not quite what I would have expected, you know. Which maybe I'm putting the, you know, bantha in front of the cart right now, or the cart in front of the bantha. But it's just kind of that's kind of her major motivation in this is not necessarily to lead Mandalore in some grand revolt, but I think it's, you know, to rescue her dad, which really speaks about, you know, the way she feels about him and everything, to the point to where she's willing to do what she needs to do and take the mantle. But of course, when she sees Bo Katan, she, you know, I don't blame her for doing what she did. You know, it's not a coward's way.
That's interesting. You should say that you don't think that she's interested in. Now, are you saying that she's not interested in leading the revolt or starting revolt? Because I think she's clearly interested in kicking the Empire out of Mandalore.
Yeah, but this was, I mean, maybe I guess you could argue that this had some more grand political importance to it, you know, for that purpose. Mm-hmm. But, okay, so her dad's going to be executed. And I guess maybe this just seemed more like a personal mission, you know.
No doubt about that. I was unclear as what you were saying earlier. Yes, and I got to add to something you said there with the relationship she had with her father. You know, they come face to face, and Sabine stands there, and it's like tick, 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 before she finally takes off her helmet and reveals herself. There's still that part of her that is uncertain about how she's going to be received by not only fellow Mandalorians, but her own family.
Right. And
she has that moment with her dad when he finally walks over and embraces her, you know, saying that he's glad that she's home. That, you know, and so that was just kind of a nice touch. She was to see Sabine, who's normally so confident, to be a little bit unsure of herself when it came to her dad. And then they also had that conversation about art. Where he's critiquing her style.
Right.
And was it Ezra that made the comment like, "Oh, so you are where?"
Yeah, so that's where she gets it from.
You're the creative one.
To which he says, no. She gets her creativity from her mother, who's found many creative ways to explode her enemies. So Mandalorians, they've got one heck of a family dynamic.
It's true. Yeah. Well, you know, and speaking of family dynamic, it's interesting because when you said about the embrace between Sabine and her father, she didn't initially melt into that. You know, she held back a little bit at first until she finally kind of let her guard down, so to speak, and finally really hugged him. But it's interesting to me with the dynamic that her father is the one that's more almost, I guess, nurturing in a way, and her mom is the one that's harder on her. Where, you know, in a lot of family dynamics, you see just the opposite happening. You know, the dad is kind of the tough one, the rock, you know, the hard one, and then mom is the softy kind of thing.
Not in my family.
No.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and turn to the second part of Heroes of Mandalore. Jay, can you give us the summary for this episode?
Sure. This episode begins with the reveal that the weapon that defeated the Mandalorians here was one of Sabine's design. However, Ursa and Tristan survived after managing to get out of the weapon's attack range. It is revealed that the weapon is designed to defeat Mandalorians by targeting their Beskar armor. So it's the alloy that's in the armor that it targets. And after Sabine's loyalty to Mandalore is questioned, she unites the Mandalorians in a mission to destroy this weapon known as the Duchess, ironically. Meanwhile, Tiber Saxon has a holo conversation in which Thrawn questions the wisdom of using such a weapon on Mandalorians and its effectiveness overall. So he was unimpressed with its range, basically. So, and he wants Sabine to finish it. So Sabine, Bo Katan, and the rebels assault the Star Destroyer housing the weapon, and eventually Sabine turns the tide on the Empire by recalibrating the weapon to target Stormtrooper armor instead. Bo Katan then talks Sabine out of using the weapon out of cowardice. After the successful completion of this mission, Bo Katan accepts the Darksaber from Sabine, and the many clans of Mandalore pledge their loyalty to her.
There was much rejoicing.
And there was much weeping on my part, and just yes. And I'm telling you what, that music, so great. Kevin Kiner, he did an amazing job with speaking volumes as that was all playing out. I was weeping, not even kidding.
And let me just continue this part of the conversation by noting, when I saw Heroes of Mandalore back in April at Celebration, we only got to see part 1. So for the past 6 months, I've been under the impression that Ursa and Tristan died.
Wow.
So it was not until, we're recording this on a Thursday night, and it was not until I got an opportunity to actually watch this on Wednesday that I found out that they survived. Which,
big sigh of relief.
Yeah, because I spent a lot of time going, I cannot believe they killed Ursa that early. Does this mean that Sabine is stepping up to take some control of the house? Which, obviously is not the case, or the clan, I should say. But so there's that.
Yeah, for me, for the past 6 months, I finally realized that they didn't name Tristan after a nice wafer-like wheat-based cracker that you can find in your local supermarket shelves.
Okay, well, a key theme of this episode is the ethics of using this weapon that Sabine designed, which, Jay, you put an emphasis on the name of the weapon. They call it the Duchess.
How Sabine really feel.
Which was a point of contention with Bo Katan. Because, you named this after my sister, the pacifist.
Right.
So, but
maybe she named it after her sister because she felt like her sister was destroying Mandalorian society or something. I don't know.
I don't think that was it. Sabine said it was, she made a couple references during the course of this episode that she designed this weapon when she was young. Okay. A, that's impressive.
She was young and she needed the money.
I was young.
And B, this was one in a long line of bad decisions, when she named it the Duchess. I think it was supposed to be more of a tribute than a social commentary.
Okay. I thought it was like a slap in the face, so to speak.
Right.
I kind of took it more satiric as well, kind of like,
satanic.
Calling satanic. Oh, you're so funny. But no, like you hear of some weapons being called like a peacekeeper. You know what I mean? So it's more, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Right. Okay. I see that. Peace or else.
Yeah.
So the question I have for you both is then, what did we think about this? The weapon was designed to target Mandalorians. So it's basically a internal matter for the Mandalorians. It was essentially to be used between the clans, between the houses of Mandalore, because it was not designed to have really any effectiveness against anyone else. When they replayed the video of this weapon, stormtroopers are just wandering around while these bolts of electricity are flying out, or that plasma electricity or whatever it was, were flying out of this weapon, specifically targeting the Mandalorians.
Yeah, like disintegrating.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It kind of reminded me of the death rays from War of the Worlds to a certain extent, but What I really love about it is that, Ezra analyzes it tactically and says, well, why don't you just change the fundamental makeup of your armor, like the baseline,
Oh,
Which to him, you would think that Mandalorians would say, okay, victory at any cost, let's change, let's undo the ability for them to, destroy us, right? Well, they look at him like he just landed there and said, hello, Earthlings, take me to your leader.
Well, yeah, for them, like they explained, that's not just armor, that's history. That Beskar has been handed down and retooled and reforged, and it has the blood of their ancestors. That would be basically like saying, well, why don't the Jedi just power their lightsabers like a flashlight?
Yeah, right.
To a Jedi, that's like, duh, no, you can't, you don't do that. So, it's a cultural thing, which I think is an interesting point, because I think we do that all the time in our society. Well, why don't you just do this? Well, we say things kind of without thinking because we don't know or we don't understand the full scope of what the history of the culture actually entails.
Right.
So,
I guess the other thing I'd raise about that is how practical a solution is that anyway? This is one weapon. It can't be on every battlefield everywhere. And
unless they replicated it somehow.
Yeah, but they hadn't yet at this point.
Right.
I kind of got the feeling if you brought in a good starship while this thing was landing, you could have taken it out. Anyway, that's an aside. But it does come up because they decide, Sabine decides that this thing has to be destroyed. She's going to destroy the very weapon that she designed. And to make it clear, the prototype that she did build, she destroyed before the Empire could get their hands on it. Yet they somehow managed to build a new one.
Well, they still had some of the data in the data core.
Yeah, somebody hit Control C.
Yes.
Exactly. But
and then Control V.
Yes.
But they were trying to decide, could we modify it to attack stormtroopers? That suggestion comes up, and Sabine says, no, it needs to be destroyed. But then when they get on the Star Destroyer and the weapon is turned on, when Bo Katan and Sabine are trying to deactivate it themselves, Tiber Saxon turns it on, and he puts it on a low power setting, just basically to knock him out, and is demanding that Sabine complete the upgrade so that it has a better range. She sabotages it and changes the setting so it attacks the stormtroopers' armor. And she puts it on lower settings, saying, this is a low power setting. And she, at that moment, decides that she wants to use it to fight the Empire. And it's Bo Katan that says, no, this is not our way. This is a coward's way. So, do you all agree with Bo Katan, or is this just a function of their society, of their culture?
Well, it's interesting that she says it's not the Mandalorian way. Right away that reminded me of it's not the Jedi way. That just played right in my mind right away. And, it's kind of the same sort of underlying philosophy, I guess you could say, if you look at it from both. And you can kind of understand why Sabine was tempted, because, she could have very easily lost Bo Katan right there, because Tiber was basically saying, if you don't upgrade this, she dies.
Right.
And, it was kind of that whole revenge. She had that power at her fingertips, but Bo Katan was the voice of reason. And I think it was impressive that she was able to, think on her feet so quickly and, leave it recalibrated that way, but just basically begging him, it's at full power now, but I beg you, don't use it. It's almost like a double-edged, meaning when she says that.
Yeah. Well, you notice it affected his armor. He wasn't wearing some repurposed Mandalorian armor.
Right, yeah.
So that's more of like evidence of them turning their backs to their own society. That's the ultimate selling out their people, right? Is even for forgoing your birthright, so to speak. Well, okay, I disagree with Bo Katan here. It may not be the Mandalorian way, but maybe it should have been the Rebellion way, because even if you don't use it as total lethal annihilation, if you can control the battlefield with even a less than lethal effect, I'm not a military guy, right? But I do know that if you can win with the least amount of force necessary, then that's a really good win. And if you can,
I don't know that I agree with you here.
Well, if you can remove your enemy's ability to wage war, that's the ultimate win, Sun Tzu says. And I feel like a weapon like this, I mean, how you deploy it on the battlefield and you just walk through, basically picking up the blasters, I mean, I don't know. It just seems like it would have had a practical application, and it might not be the Mandalorian way, but maybe it's a useful weapon,
Saw Gerrera's way, maybe.
Well, I'm not saying microwave everybody. I'm saying at least use it for incapacitation,
That's all good and well, but can you trust the next guy to be as restrained as you when you're using it? Is my point. Is that, there's certain weapons that we just don't use. We don't use biological weapons. We don't use chemical weapons. And there's ethical considerations to be taken in there. The problem, I understand what you're saying, Taxus, is that if this weapon had a maximum effectiveness of knocking out your enemies, then perhaps. But it doesn't have that limitation on it. It's variable. It's like your blaster has a stun setting and it has a kill setting. This has a very high level, very horrific death setting to it. And I don't know that that's the type of thing that you can just trust to be out there. But this topic itself could take us another 30 minutes to get through. Right. And I think for me, and perhaps for Bo Katan, it is they are about proving themselves in battle, and this weapon takes all that away, so to speak. But one other comment to make on the weapon is Grand Admiral Thrawn. I don't think he approved of this thing at all. He did make that comment to Tiber Saxon that what are your people going to think when you turn this weapon on them? And Tiber's point was, I don't care. This weapon is essentially akin to a Death Star. When I turn it on them, I will show my ability to destroy them, and they'll have no choice but to submit to my overwhelming might and power. It's a weapon of terror at that point. If they oppose me, then I'm going to turn this on them, and they're going to die. They don't stand a chance. And then once Thrawn just, I don't know. It was an interesting conversation because he asked him that question, and then it's like, well, if you're going to use it, you need to get it up to its full operational capabilities. So get Sabine.
No, I think he was on board with it. He just wanted to know what Saxon's underlying reason was for it, because of course Thrawn is all about tactics. So he wants to know the why behind the what. But I don't think that he would have asked for Sabine to finish it and say that he was unimpressed with its range if he wasn't intending to eventually use it. So I think he was on board with it, but he just wanted to question Saxon and say, hey, well, why do you want to do this? And don't, just kind of bring those things out. But, ultimately, I can see both of your points as far as using the weapon, not using the weapon. How would you use it? Why would you use it? But one thing that I always have to keep in the back of my mind is, as much as we as adults love to analyze this stuff, ultimately, this is a cartoon. This is developed for kids.
Animated series.
And it is, it is a way for possibly some teaching moments to happen. And of course, yes, this is all part of the continuity of the saga, and it's important not to downplay those in any way that's going to take away from it. But yet, we still have to remember that this is part of not just the Star Wars saga, but it's also part of what we're teaching children. So, I mean, that I always keep that in the back of my mind, that's got to be a piece in there when the story group is sitting down to develop some of these things.
Yeah, there's probably going to be some brutal lessons coming up this season.
Oh, yeah.
So they drop. Well,
definitely.
Why don't we finish off our discussion of this episode with what you were talking about earlier, Jay, which was Bo Katan's acceptance of the Darksaber. And I think that moved you the most. So I don't remember all of the Mandalorian episodes from the Clone Wars, but I do remember, her pitching in with the Death Watch when she needed to for a little while there, and obviously Satine's death was a breaking point with all that. But what else about that?
Well, I think a big part of that is I think that she sees a lot of herself reflected in Sabine. With Bo Katan being part of Death Watch when she was younger was kind of a series of bad decisions, which is kind of the same thing that Sabine was going through. So I think that she can see herself reflected in that. But for Bo Katan to be able to take up the sword that she knows killed her sister and use it as a symbol, I think that that's going to be something, you know what I mean? That's going to be something that, yes, my sister died for this. So yes, I'm going to take this forward and I'm going to change what maybe this sword has been used for in the past, because it was used for brutality and it was used to rule with an iron fist. And yes, it's always been a symbol, but I think that Bo Katan's rulership or leadership as a ruler will have sort of a different flavor as she carries the Darksaber forward.
Taxus?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the future of Mandalore is at this point. They can go all sorts of ways. I just wonder, if maybe Thrawn, the purpose of Thrawn being in this episode, which, Jay, I really, really can't wait for you to finish that book, because it kind of makes me rethink now that whole scene with Thrawn, because I kind of felt it was kind of needless, almost, But why would you put him in there unless it was like, hey, don't forget, this guy's still around. Or it actually had some sort of purpose. And the Thrawn that I love is someone who's analyzing. And maybe the whole, you need to get Sabine to finish the weapon. Maybe that's how he's analyzing the current mind state of the Mandalorian people who are rising up in revolt against the Empire. So he can develop an effective strategy to deal with them,
Good point.
I don't know. It's just, it's interesting. So you need to finish that book.
I will. I'll get on it, Master. I promise.
Well, one last thought then about the Darksaber and Bo Katan's acceptance of it. Last season, we learned the history of the Darksaber, which is originally it belonged to the first Mandalorian Jedi, essentially a peacekeeper, and that they brought that back, and then it was a powerful symbol for the Mandalorians for a long time before it fell into Prey Vizslá's hand and then Darth Maul's hand, and its purpose was completely corrupted. So it is good to see that weapon back in the hands of someone who will put it to an appropriate use. But I think that will do it for our discussion of the first 2 episodes of Season 4 of Rebels. Scoundrels, we want to hear what you have to say, so please drop us a line at SCubedPod@retrozap.com. Finally, some trick-or-treaters. That bowl of candy was beginning to call to me, and I was beginning to think no one was going to show up.
I wasn't expecting this.
Yeah, they're a little short, but Kylo Ren and a squad of First Order stormtroopers. That would explain why there are no other trick-or-treaters around.
Well, I guess we should give them some candy. Jay, can you grab the bowl?
Sure. Okay. Kylo, 1 each for you and your troopers.
You know I can take whatever I want.
No, you have a lot of stormtroopers here, and we might have more trick-or-treaters later. 1 each, please.
No.
Whoa, watch out.
Pumpkins are flying everywhere.
Oh, I think I got some pulp in my eye.
That happened to me once.
Ugh, well, he is gone. Looks like he got all our pumpkins and decorations. Oh, wait, one survived.
The poor pumpkin, of course.
Come to me, my precious.
I'm not afraid.
Yeah.
You will be. You will be.
Last Halloween, Darth Taxus and I reviewed Death Troopers, the Star Wars horror novel by Joe Schreiber. This year, we deemed it only fitting to review Schreiber's prequel Death Troopers, Red Harvest, now that Jay has joined us as a co-host. Taxus, sound the spoiler alarm again, and give us a brief synopsis of this novel.
Thanks, Dennis. In the time of the Old Republic, Darth Sabers concocts a plan to achieve immortality at the Sith Academy on Audister Foston. In order to make it work, he needs the Murakami Orchid held by the Jedi Agricultural Corps on the planet Marfa, and under the care of Padawan Hestizo Zo Trace. Sabers dispatches the Whiffid bounty hunter, Tulk, to retrieve the Orchid and Hestizo. After Tulk brings them back to the Sith Academy, the Orchid is added to Sabers' experiment, and the Sith apprentices studying there begin transforming into zombies after an outbreak. Zoe's brother, Rojo Trace, also a Jedi, vows to rescue Zoe, but dies at Sabers' hand. However, Zoe begins to realize her Jedi potential and escapes from Audister Foston as all the Sith apprentices around her die.
All right. Yeah, so there's a very succinct summary of this novel. And what did y'all think? I mean, to me, this is not a novel that really has a lot of deep themes or moral lessons to it. This is pretty much a pure horror novel. Yeah. Jay, I think this was your first time reading it. What did you think?
Oh yeah, it was my first time, and of course I love the Old Republic and anything related to it, so it was a lot of fun. I mean, that's basically what I can say about the book. It was a lot of fun. It's great to read right around Halloween. It doesn't have a whole lot of I mean, it has some plot twists to it, but nothing really major as far as what you don't necessarily anticipate with your normal zombie story, I guess you could say. But it was very enjoyable. I think my favorite part of the whole thing was just the mystique of the Murakami Orchid. I mean, what is it? And why don't we ever hear about it again? And, if it's got this type of power, obviously there's Jedi that can communicate with it. So where did that legacy fall,
Well, it's very rare, obviously. I mean, because, at the end of the novel, when there's a second one, I think she's somewhat surprised by it, Yeah, this is actually one of my most favorite Star Wars books of all time. I read it before I read Death Troopers. I love it just because of, you're right, it's just the horror of it all. And it's all derived from this Sith quest of immortality with Darth Sabers, which, by the way, I mean, points for the name.
It's a great name, Scab. Just Scab.
I mean, it so fits in right with the whole story of all the ichor and gore and just everything. And I mean, you're right. There's nothing too deep here. The Jedi are Jedi. The Sith berries taste like Sith berries. I mean, and in fact, that's kind of, I thought it was interesting. Looking into the mindset of some of the Sith students, and when the sickness is convincing them to just let go, and they see that promise of power. So, an immortality in their eyes that they really want, and so that's kind of what lets them give in to the sickness, so to speak. And
right.
I mean, it's just, man, just from the get-go, just from the fact that Sabers is like, I need somebody I can use this on in order to, further my goals, and he picks that poor Nictor guy, Nictor,
right,
and just plugs him with all these tubes down his spine and puts him in a cage.
That was cringy.
Oh my gosh,
definitely cringy.
Oh, and even when how he dealt with those two bounty hunters in the beginning, because he knew that they had failed him, and serves one of them the other one's head.
Makes them eat it.
I don't know if he did or not, but he definitely presented him with the opportunity. But
well, and here's the ironic part of the whole thing is that they're promised immortality, but yet they are dead. So they're zombies. So I understand how Sabers was still able to use the Force because he was still basically trying to keep himself alive by, pumping the fresh blood and, that type of thing into him. But I mean, basically, once the Sith students had been given themselves over to the sickness, they weren't alive anymore. And the Force only works in things that are alive. So realistically, they had to make a trade-off, right? Because they weren't able to use the Force. Otherwise, they would have been able to hurl themselves up the walls rather than scream and crawl up the walls.
Yeah, but there were some preternatural abilities that they had to avoid
just because they were zombies. I mean, zombies just have superhuman strength, period, as, we know from many horror novels and movies and whatnot.
Well, I mean, when they were, it was the pain pipe, and Tulk was in there with HK, and he was springing the traps on him, and he was about to spring the one that was like the punji spikes or whatever, that probably would have been really good.
It jumped out of the way.
And in mass, they jumped before, almost like what somebody who was force sensitive would be.
Right, I forgot about that.
And now, see, I thought that was more of a function of one of them noticed, and they all kind of had a hive mind reaction to it.
Well, okay. So how about this? Hestizo is communicating at some point with the orchid. That's basically what the final ingredient to create this concoction that creates the zombies, right?
Right.
And the sickness is a living entity, even though the host bodies are technically dead. The sickness is a disease viruses live.
Right.
Yeah, it was an interesting take on this disease because minor spoilers here for Death Troopers if you haven't read it, and you can check out our review in episode 14. But the virus isn't quite the living thing in Death Troopers. We don't have the orchid there that is kind of speaking to a Jedi or anything like that.
Yeah.
We learn more about this, far more about the virus through its creation here than we do in Death Troopers, for certain. But, one other aspect of this, Sabers had this elaborate plan. He was going to create the virus, infect himself with the virus, leave himself alive for a while, then slay a Jedi that had the right middle chlorine count and eat their living heart.
Right.
To get that influx of midi-chlorians at the last moment, which would then preserve their being.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's one heck. How do you even figure something like that out?
Well, it was probably from the holocron that he did it. And I don't think that he anticipated... Well,
how did that guy figure it out?
Well, yeah, true.
The dark side.
But I don't think that it was something that he anticipated happening so quickly, because when Nictor attacked him, automatically he was backtracking and trying to, he was prepared. So I think that he wasn't going to infect himself until he found the quote unquote right Jedi that was going to do that. But and getting back to what you were saying about the orchid, with the fact that was a force sensitive object, obviously, which was the last ingredient for the sickness. And it's interesting because the word kami, the last part of Murakami, is I actually looked this up. It's in the Shinto religion of the Japanese, and it means a divine power or aura. So
interesting. It's also what we called the Reds back in the Cold War.
I thought you were talking about the baseball team.
Oh yeah. No,
the Reds.
Something else.
Okay.
So let's talk about the protagonist here for a second. Okay. I hesitate to use that word protagonist, but we have a number of characters that are trying to survive what I think it was Tulk that dubbed them the teenage zombie Sith.
Yeah.
Yes.
The closest thing to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle reference we had there. But we had Tulk the bounty hunter, who I thought started off kind of on the despicable side, but then kind of swung around. I don't want to call him quite the hero, but maybe an anti-hero.
Yeah.
We had Hestizo. We had her brother Rojo. And then we had a number of Sith students, which I'm not certainly, they may have been protagonists to some degree, but they weren't heroes.
Yeah.
We had the crazy Nettie librarian.
Oh yeah.
That was cool.
What did we think about this cast of characters?
Very varied, very varied. But yeah, the librarian, wow, that's such a cool way to incorporate a different force being. And I mean, have we ever really seen anything like that in any other way? You know, the only thing that I could think of as far as something being even remotely close would be the in Rebels. Oh gosh, why can't I think of it? Help me out, guys.
Oh, the Bendu?
The Bendu. Yes. I'm telling you what, it's late, guys. But yeah, I mean, it kind of reminded me of the Bendu in a way. This big being that was just a presence and had always been. You know, it seemed like this Nettie had always been there. And I couldn't help but thinking of Nettie Pot. You know, what people clean their nostrils out with.
Oh, geez.
But that kept, I don't know why, that kept just coming into my brain.
Is it because of all the sap that was accumulating when...
maybe.
When he was infected?
Mucusy sap.
Yeah.
Nettie needs a Nettie Pot.
Yeah, the Nettie are actually interesting. I was trying to find a picture of one online, and I forgot that they had shown up in some of the old Dark Horse comics that they put out. And they weren't always these gnarly creatures that this one was described as. Some of them look fairly beautiful. They do have a shape-shifting quality to them that they can alter their appearance as they want. But this one really got into his role as a Sith librarian, which struck me as rather a unique profession.
Yeah.
Of course, we have Jocasta Nu for the Jedi, and this is no Jocasta Nu.
Right.
No.
And he kind of
Although they have the same sort of, resolute way of keeping their libraries.
And he went sort of native, too. I mean, he kind of allowed himself to, I don't want to say devolve in like a negative sense, but he became more tree than humanoid, you might say, but because there were other Nettie in the old expanded universe, and one actually had lived for 5,000 years until after he was a Jedi, and until 10 years after the Battle of Yavin. So he was basically there for the ancient Sith Wars and all the way through that history. So stands to reason. I mean, you've got beings that are trees, basically. They can live for as long as they have light and water, are disease-free, apparently. So, one of the things I loved about this was Scabrous. You're right, he did have a plan. He had all those pumps with fresh blood, and he had like all this medical stuff he was applying to himself just to try to stave it. But even from the beginning, he knew he had to get Hestizo to the library. That was his.
But he was so confident he was going to get it done too. Is like because when he got the infection, his reaction was kind of like, "Well, this was early, but I've got plenty of time."
Yeah, exactly. And
she ran off, but I'll find her. And
I guess he must have known that she had the proper midichlorian count because she was the one that was the symbiote with the orchid. So yeah. That's what do you think about Trace? Trace.
What stands out for me with Rojo was his line he borrowed from Taken after he discovered Hestizo had been kidnapped. I don't know who you are, but I have a certain set of skills that make me a nightmare to people like you. If you let her go now, he's just kind of like saying this into the Force. It was a funny line to include in there, and as soon as I heard him start to say it, I was like, oh, I know where this is going. It just, I don't know. It was kind of a little weird, but he didn't actually have that much time in the book.
No.
He discovered that his sister was kidnapped, and then he arrives on the Sith homeworld, then disappears for a while until he gets to the library, and not long after that, Scabrous kills him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which was kind of interesting because he seemed pretty powerful, or at least really super fast. He was able to clear a quarter of a kilometer in like a few seconds or something, which I guess serves you well whenever it's all zombie infested. But I think Schreiber even admitted in an interview, he said that, I totally lifted lines from Taken. I mean, come on, they're just awesome. And I thought this was I liked him because it gave me a feeling, okay, you feel like Hestizo's not really the mightiest Jedi out of the bunch, right? I mean,
well, she's a farmer.
She's a farmer, right?
That she's not a warrior. I mean, that wasn't her forte.
Right. And back then in the EU, I mean, if you didn't quite make the cut to be like one of these Jedi Knights, then there were other avenues for you to explore the Force with, and one of them was the agricultural corps, So it kind of, to me, as the reader, I felt like, okay, well, this guy's going to come in here and whoop some major butt. All right. I'm just waiting for this, because you just didn't see it coming from Hestizo necessarily, although there is that one point to where she basically eradicates 5 zombies before Tolk can even get a sentence out, because she lets herself go in the Force. That was such a great, that was such a great scene. Loved it.
The audiobook. The audiobook did a great job with that scene.
She actually plucks the arrow out of the air that he's firing at one of them, snaps it in half, and then jams it through 2 zombie skulls. That's so great.
It reminds me, have you guys ever seen Megamind?
Yes.
It reminds me of the part in Megamind where all the time is standing still, and Metro Man is pondering his life as a hero, and everything. He's like plucking the French fries off of the tray that's about to fall. It's just like time standing still. That's what it reminded me of. So it was fun.
It was like the Flash, kind of.
Yeah, that's
super
too.
speed. Yeah. But yeah. Yeah,
so let's talk about the assassin droid for a minute.
Oh, yes.
HK.
Oh, it's great.
Okay, so I was thinking that, the whole reason why Scabbers probably had this thing around was he, of course, put the restraining bolt on it so that it would be Mr. Protocol until he needed it to kill off the zombies that had the sickness. And then he would release its potential at that point. But of course, it was Tolk that ends up doing that.
Good point. Yeah, and that's such a funny part where Tolk rips that thing off because the droid's like, I don't know what you're talking about, sir. I don't have any weapons, He rips that thing off, and it's like, it's go time, I mean, all these weapons start coming out of it. He just starts laying in. Doesn't even give Tolk a warning. He just starts laying a blaster barrage out into the zombies that are coming around them. Oh, it's so wonderful. And they ended up being a pretty good team.
They did.
Together. Yeah, both hunters.
Yeah, I liked it. There was a later scene where they were making their way through a zombie area, and HK just kept coming up with new weapons to try out. Oh, let's use the flamethrowers. here's a mortar round. It's kind of funny to think that with his restraining bolt, he thought he was a protocol droid, and he never noticed all the weapons that he was carrying around with
Exactly. It's like one of those ladies in the old South that have layers and layers of petticoats, and they have things that are hidden in the petticoats that no one knows about.
What do you guys think about the scenery? Because you just reminded me of the mortar round comment, because he uses those mortars or a mortar round against a big group of infected tauntauns. That one of them was trying to spit like a camel, and HK shoves Tolk out of the way and is like, they're legendary for their spitting or something.
Yeah. Right. And they stink, of course, already, as we know.
Yeah. But then the zombies are hiding in their stomachs, which is even grosser.
Outside. Yeah, they're like using their carcasses for
as cover,
almost like a Trojan horse in a way.
Oh, and which shows some type of intelligence, to the whole thing. But yeah, what'd you think of the whole setting, like, of the Sith Academy?
Oh, I think it was perfect. I mean, as far as being cold and dead itself,
and snowing.
to be on a snowy planet, akin to Hoth, and having the Tauntauns there, obviously. So
real ancient ruins.
Yeah, I liked it. I preferred the setting of the Star Destroyer from Death Troopers, simply because I felt like it was easier to visualize everything there, simply because being familiar with Star Destroyers in general. But this was fun too. I mean, the Sith Academy gave us the opportunity to have things like the Nettie, which wouldn't have made sense on a Star Destroyer.
It felt like The Shining, kind of, to me. Like a real big building, lots of snow, lots of ice, you know what I mean? Horror going on around you. It just, that's just kind of the way the setting felt to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just took it as, the dark side is cold. So this makes sense. And death is cold. So, it just kind of all fit.
Yeah, sure.
Well, why don't we go around here and offer up a final thought? And we will start with you, Jay.
Okay, sure. Like I said, I thought it was a fun book right before Halloween. And it was just a lot of fun to see where the story went and how some of the characters coexisted, no pun intended, with each other. But my favorite parts of it were definitely the Murakami Orchid and the relationship between it and Hestizo, and the assassin droid and Tulk and their relationship with each other. Yeah. And just the whole idea of, that this is something that was planned for how many years that Scabros wanted to bring to fruition.
Yeah.
So it was just overall just a fun book.
Yeah. Yeah, I really love this book. Like I said, I've read it about 4 times. Be remiss. I kind of feel like almost there was more of a story that they were setting up for the adventures of Hestizo Trace in space. Because
Hestizo Trace in space.
Because she ends up surviving with the mechanic, kind of the tech guy there at the Sith Academy. That kind of just, it's a job. Right? He's not like evil or anything. It's just a job to him. But he ends up surviving. Unfortunately, Tolk doesn't, because some of that tauntaun spit gets in his eye and he turns. And so they got to blow him. And a zombie that, of course, made it onto the escape ship, a la, Alien, Dennis. And they blow him out of the airlock.
Oh, okay.
I just feel like there was more in store for her that I would have really loved to see. I love the gothic horror of it. Sabers, to me, was a great villain, singular-minded, stalking. I loved the scenes of regular Sith life, all of a sudden just upended with all this zombie invasion, and especially when the zombies figured out how lightsabers work. That was that's pretty creepy,
That was an interesting scene.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, this is a great book. If you're looking for a good little scary story to really propel you forward to Halloween, then I really recommend this one.
Mm-hmm. And it was an easy read too. I mean, I tore through this book pretty quick.
Oh, it's fast. It's wonderful. I read it. I mean, I read it to my children when they were children. It was,
You did?
It was a bedtime story.
Yeah, Dad of the Year points to you, I suspect.
There you have it.
Well, I gotta say, I enjoyed the book. My favorite character was Tulk out of all this, and I was really quite disappointed when he didn't survive. I knew he wasn't going to, but if he had to go and he was going to get infected, I suppose getting blown out the airlock with all of his trophies was the way to do it.
Yeah.
But I don't remember any other weapons from Legends that had that much of a personality or that developed that much. And so there was that uniqueness.
Yeah.
And the fact that he relied on a spear and his bow and arrows and this more primitive way of hunting. And the audiobook did a great job with his character, bringing those lines to life. So I agree. I kind of expected to see a 3rd book in this series, actually something maybe set between Red Harvest and Death Troopers, with Hestizo getting called upon again to, maybe address some other zombie outbreak somewhere. So slightly disappointed that never happened. But definitely a fun Halloween read. Not for the squeamish, not for the faint of heart. No. And if you are not a Taxus, not for your children.
Children need to learn about zombie threats.
There's other ways to do that, man. But anyway, so definitely gets I think a recommendation from all 3 of us. But Scoundrels, we want to know what you think. So like with everything else, send us your thoughts to SCubedPod@retrozap.com.
This is the life. Afterlife. Nothing to do but just watch some hutball action with my best pal.
Don't forget me.
Oh yeah. +1. Hey, what are you doing?
My favourite House and Yard network show, Tiny Imperial Walker Hunters, is on.
Well, get the remote from her. I can't move things. Who do you think I am, Patrick Swayze? Okay, we'll put it to a vote. All in favor of watching hutball? Good. All opposed? Sorry, kid. It's 2-1.
I'd say it's a tie.
Leia, what are you doing here? Did Kylo kill you too?
No, I slipped on the mailing room fruit peel after the closing credits.
Yeah, didn't you see the movie?
No one has yet.
Well, I see you're doing good for yourself.
Yeah, it's nice here.
Your body wasn't even cold yet, and here you are, bumming it up with your pal, drinking ectoplasm IPA, watching sports, basically doing nothing with your life.
Afterlife.
Whatever. There I was, all alone, my heart broken, crying to myself hour after hour. Ben never calls anymore. I hit rock bottom. But all you cared about was positioning the couch for the best viewing angle. On top of all that, I find you shacked up with this floozy who's young enough to be your daughter.
You mean I'm not?
Who knows?
I would hope you do.
Hey, let's get back to what's important. Me. I paid my dues. I deserve this. This is my retirement, my reward, my happy place. This is my time.
You mean our time?
My time to rest and relax. Hey, wait a minute. What did you say?
I'm here with you forever.
No, your deadness. Till death do us part. We had a deal.
I'm altering the deal.
Deja vu. Okay, let's say you stay. That still leaves us a tie for the Holo TV.
Well, I suppose I'm the tiebreaker.
Okay, now who's this?
I'm Jin Erso. Rogue One?
Another one of your roommates, Han?
Leia, I honestly have no idea who this is.
Is that why there's ectoplasm all over your collar?
You know, you blow yourself up to save the dream, and look at the thanks you get. I'm the only reason you two got together in the first place.
Gee, thanks.
Didn't you see the movie?
Anyway. Hey, whoever that guy is with you has to want to watch hutball.
Oh, this is Cassian, my really good friend.
Hello.
Looks like we're back to a tie vote.
Very much so. Just like my Gino.
Good boy.
Say again.
I do whatever she tells me to do.
Now wait a minute. This is my ship and my TV. I want to watch some hutball.
I'm the only reason the rebellion existed. No paycheck, no statue, not even a mention of Star Wars. With all that noise, why bother trying to watch anything? I'm going pork hunting. Would you like to come, Julie? I just don't get it. You're sort of a scruffy nerve herder, and your relationship stays on space but gets on the light. I mean, I know the industry has been on It's Complicated for a while, but
It's time for
Silence, Fools!
All right, Jay, I think you have the emails for us this week, so what is up first?
I do. Well, our first email comes from our loyal fan and friend, Ryder Waldron, who is also a co-host on Idiots Array, as well as a blogger for Coffee with Kenobi. And he shared... Yeah, you can sing it, man. So he shared his thoughts on The Last Jedi trailer, and this is what he had to say. My favorite part of the new The Last Jedi trailer was when Kylo was flying towards Leia's ship, or at least we are meant to believe that. It reminded me of the scene in Revenge of the Sith when Anakin is at the Jedi Temple looking out over Coruscant, and Padme is at her apartment doing the same.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. He said you can see the emotion on Anakin's face, and it is almost like Padme is pleading with him to come back to her and not to go to Palpatine's office. In The Last Jedi trailer, you can see the conflict on Kylo's face, and you can see Leia pleading with him through the Force to come back home. The acting is so good in both scenes by all four actors. No words are spoken, but we understand what they are wanting to say. Anakin was crying. Kylo had tears in his eyes, and the women have complete resolve. Thoughts, Scoundrels.
You know, what I love about this trailer is that it is being interpreted in so many different ways.
Yeah.
And two, no one believes a thing that they've been presented with it. I don't think anyone thinks that the way it's been cut together actually portrays what's happening in the movie. I don't know. I suspect there's things there that we won't see in the movie, but I really like Ryder's take on that comparison with the prequel. And it feels like this trailer has got a bunch of comparisons between Kylo and Anakin throughout.
Yeah. Both real moody, both dark, brooding, both staring at things. Yeah, the spinning starship. The spinning
right.
Yep.
There's the scene from Revenge of the Sith where Anakin is leading the clone troopers into the Jedi Temple. The scene from this trailer where Kylo leads stormtroopers, presumably on Crate. And then, what Ryder just described for us. There's a lot of similarities being drawn between Kylo and Anakin, which is quite fascinating. And we already know that he's emulating or attempting to live up to Darth Vader's standard.
It's true.
With that, embrace the power of the dark side and
testify.
And I don't know if this is just a function of the trailer or if this was a deliberate design choice for the movie, but it's working fantastically so far.
Yeah, it really is. And Ryder, that's some great analysis. Stuff I hadn't even thought of. Yeah.
I know. Same here. And, and I'm all about the whole ring theory thing and how everything kind of what comes around goes around. So, it makes sense. And I love it. Oh, and his last thought was, and tell Dennis that I kind of like porgs now after seeing the trailer and reading my new blog. So I've brought him over to the porg side.
It's kind of like him.
Ryder's still a good guy.
I love you too, Ryder.
Taxus, you're another story.
I love you, Ryder.
Okay, Jay.
All right, so we have one more very, very short one here from Pam Brookwalski, who is also a Coffee with Kenobi blogger. And she had this to say about The Last Jedi trailer. She said, Rey seems to be that balancing point, but also Rey's relationship with Kylo Ren is a balancing point as well. I got this instant feeling of a line between the two of them being pulled taut. What will snap it and in whose favor? So very short and sweet, but it's just sort of just a quick reaction that she shared.
Yeah, it's interesting. As we talked about last time, after watching the trailer, we brought up the whole thing where Ryan said that Rey and Kylo are two sides of the same protagonist coin or something to that effect. And I've been thinking about that a lot, and I don't know. I'm kind of wondering. Let's just assume for a second that Rey is in fact a Skywalker somewhere, somehow, and even perhaps that she is Luke's daughter. Again, pure speculation here. I don't know a thing. I've been avoiding, other than the trailers and the teasers and the things that Lucasfilm puts out. I'm not seeking out any spoilers. It would be really interesting if they were that yin and the yang of the Skywalker family. Kylo of the dark, Rey of the light. And then both of them moving towards the middle. So that's a very interesting observation that Pam made.
Yeah, especially with you cited ring theory earlier. Now Pam citing string theory.
Ooh,
how about
Isn't that on The Big Bang Theory?
And science.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I only know it from watching The Big Bang Theory. That's how I learn all of my science.
Well, there you go. That's how I do too.
It works for me.
Yeah. But yeah.
So that's what I've got, guys.
All right. Well, Scoundrels, thanks for writing in. And if you want your email to be read on the air, just send those to us at SCubedPod@retrozap.com.
Guess it could be yarn theory.
Boys and girls of every age, wouldn't you like to see something strange? Come with us and you will see. This our town of Halloween.
Well, despite Kylo's tantrum taking out the Halloween decorations, this was a fun episode. It's great to have Rebels back, and I had a great time with our Red Harvest discussion. So, before we go, what else do you both have for our Scoundrels to look for?
Well, I actually just had a blog that posted for Coffee with Kenobi on the 18th of this month, and it was called Porg Psychology 101. So it's all about what makes us drawn to those little porgs. So if you're into porgs, check it out. And I will be having another Core Worlds Couture review coming up soon. And I am scheduled to be on a Rebels Reactions show for Coffee with Kenobi in November. So that's what I have coming up. Yep.
Okay. Well, you can find me on the Assembly Geeks Network too, on The Geek Supreme, which is a fun little game-style show that I have with Scott Murray, Jeff McGee, and Regina Davis. And it releases every Tuesday, so go check it out.
Yeah, Jay, despite your blog about porgs, I'll let you come back for the next episode. You're welcome. I have some recent comic reviews on RetroZap, including Captain Phasma number 3 and 4 and Dr. Aphra number 13. Just check out the comic commentary section under the articles to find them. I also will be doing the second part of my blog on Luke Skywalker's plan at Jabba's Palace on Coffee with Kenobi, so that should be out at about the same time as this. And then, of course, since our last episode, my wife Beth and I have released 2 more episodes of Warp Trails covering the most recent episodes of Star Trek Discovery, so be on the lookout for those. That's a RetroZap podcast feed exclusive, so you either need to go to retrozap.com or subscribe to the RetroZap feed to get those. So just look under iTunes for RetroZap, and that's what I got going on. Okay, Scoundrels, thanks for your listening and for your support. If you've enjoyed the show, this has been Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels, and we would love a review wherever you listen to your podcasts, especially iTunes, which is also known as Apple Podcasts. Did you know you can write a podcast review directly from Apple's podcast app now? Well, you can. And if that is your podcatcher, it's easier than ever to leave a review. On the other hand, if you didn't care for this, then we request you not tune the Duchess to melt her armor and us with it. Beskar is hard to come by after all. In all seriousness, we appreciate it anytime you share our show posts on Twitter and Facebook. Please let others know that you're listening. Thanks to all the dedicated scoundrels that take the time to share our show with others.
We are on social media. Starship, Sabers, and Scoundrels can be followed on Twitter at SCubedPod and liked on Facebook, where we are facebook.com/SCubedPod. We are also on Instagram at SCubedPod. If you want to follow Darth Taxus on Twitter, he is at Darth Taxus, Dennis is at GJKVER2, and I am at Joyce Krebs. In addition to social media, you can reach us by email at SCubedPod@retrozap.com. We would love to hear your reactions to the newest Rebels episodes, as well as any other thoughts that you might have. Red Harvest, anything coming up, The Last Jedi, the trailer, the Solo movie, or anything else that might be on your mind, Star Wars related or not. Let us know. The best emails, well, almost all emails, end up in Silence Fools. Again, that email address is SCubedPod@retrozap.com.
As always, we are honored to be part of the RetroZap.com podcast network. Please check out the other RetroZap shows, which I'm going to read off with my fake imaginary Halloween alternate naming that you'll have to come up with by yourselves, listening audience, including the Animanicast, the Argcast, the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Beltway Banthas, Brews and Blasters, Classic Marvel Comics, Deucecast Movie Show, Dork Lair, Dunecast, Green Justice, Kanata's Castle, Scarlet Velocity, Skywalking Through Neverland, The Sandcrawler, Talking Apes TV, Techno Retro Dads, Terrigen Dreams, Trade Federation, Warp Trails, We Know Nothing. Also be sure to check out our Scoundrels t-shirts on TeePublic. Just go to tpublic.com/user/SCubedPod or just search for us on the site. We're easy to find there.
All right. Well, thanks to Aaron Lay for our show logos and to James Volpe, the Sky Geek, for our The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly show logo.
Thanks to all the Scoundrels players for their voice talents this episode, including Joey, Natasha, Children of James, Soph, and Jeff. And thanks to Monty Pittman for use of the song Be Very Afraid. Also, special thanks to Lord Girth Saber for helping with the production at the beginning of the show.
And here is our disclaimer. Starship, Sabers, and Scoundrels is not endorsed, affiliated with, or sponsored by Lucasfilm Limited and or Disney. This show is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. All characters, music, and sounds are the intellectual property of their respective copyright holders. All else is the intellectual property of Starship, Sabers, and Scoundrels unless otherwise indicated.
All right. Well, before we close this up for the night, you guys have any final thoughts?
Know any good vampire jokes, Taxus?
Nah, they've all been bled dry.
All right. Well, That'll do it for episode 40 of Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels. Always, thanks for listening and joining us this week. We'll catch up with you next time. Until then, may the Force be with you.
You should have a happy Halloween, Orky Day.
Usually, let me try that again.
Hitting puberty, are you?
Man, I'm hitting something.
Save that for after the credits. Wow.